everyone, it is great to be crafting again with you today. I am actually testing out a little bit of a different way of filming my videos, and that is to use some onboard sound. So please forgive me while I sort of get my bearings in filming like in a more live, organic way. And of course, what better way to kick it off than with the part 2 of our Fisherman's Basket project. So today we are going to be basically creating a cover for the beautiful Fisherman's Basket pages that we did in the last video. If you haven't seen that video, I will link it below. So go and have a quick watch and get caught up, pun intended. Haha. So we're going to start by basically getting some measurements of our pages and getting a bit of a plan together. So I want to create a cover that is sort of going to be like a satchel style cover. So I want a cover that's going to basically open this way. So it'll open this way. We've got the flap down here, flap up here, and then our pages will turn this way. And I want to create a baskety kind of effect with some weaving in the cover. Obviously then it'll sort of imply or imply that Fisherman's Basket theme that I'm going for. And then I also want to make some little straps for some little fastening straps for the basket cover, along with a handle. And I think that'll probably, and a little binding, clasp kind of situation for our page binding. So a bit to cover in this video today, but we're just got to get started. So first thing I want to do is work on the cover. Now I've got these two, and we're going to do everything in as upcycly a fashion as possible. So I've got these two suspension file folders, and they're both this kind of crafty card stock, but they do have a slightly different color to them. So I think that will work really beautifully as a weave. It'll be subtle, not too overbearing, but there will be like some nice texture and some nice color differentiation between the two cardstocks. Obviously these are way too big, but we'll be trimming them down and hopefully doing a nice little cardboard weave. So if we take our book, and then I think I'm going to use this lighter one, or this like more browny colored one, as the base, and then weave into it. So this will be if you've watched my video, I'll also link a video on how I do my weaving, page weaving, in another video. I will link that down below as well. But if you are familiar with that video, when we're doing paper weaving, we've got our warp strings and then our weave strings. So the warp is what I'll be referring to this as, and that is basically just our, I guess, substrate page that we're using to weave onto. So I'm going to start, I'm going to take it all the way to the edge here, maybe in just a smidgen, but I do kind of want everything to sort of line up. So that's about 24. Let's go 24. Lovely. Okay, great. 24 centimeters across. So I'm going to just trim this down to 24 centimeters. Okay, so next I'm going to fold this in. Now we do have like the score line already, but I think that will be okay, and bring just a little bit of extra texture to our cover. So I'm thinking something like this. What I think I want to have our weave strings, so the weaving that will go this way, I think I want those to be around about 1.5 centimeters wide. Typically I weave with 1 centimeter strings, but because this is cardboard on cardboard, I think that a slightly thicker strip will work more in our favor. So I just sort of roughly scored those lines there. So we'll just mark out our top line and our outer. So our 2 outer lines, probably should be squaring this off. Let's just square it off. Just square this one off as well. Make sure that everything's nice and straight as we can make it. And then if we're going to have 1.5 centimeter warp strings, we sort of have to give ourselves the right amount of dimensions so that as the cover folds around the pages, there's not some weird gaps, you know what I mean? So there's not like either not enough room for the warp strings or too much room where, you know, there's just awkwardness. So what I want to do is measure, so if we're going to have 1.5 centimeter warp strings, we're sort of wanting maybe 2, so if 3 centimeters, so I might give myself 4 centimeters for the depth. Just check this in a very technical way. Ooh, might not be thick enough. Let's try again. So 4.5. So wait, I'm confusing myself. So that's 3, and that's 4.5. 4.5 centimeters will give us 3 warp strings. Weave strings, I beg your pardon. So we actually need that to be there. And just make sure that there's enough depth here, just so that the pages aren't kind of crushed, you know, so that they sit, you know, with a bit of air. So we're going to say 4, what did I say? 4.5, was it? Yeah, 4.5. So we're going to just mark out 4.5. Let's just use even numbers, right? Then we don't have to strain the grey matter too hard. Oh dear. I mean, it's crafting, right? Nobody said this was maths class. Okay, so we're going to mark that out. Now all this interior, even though I love the look of it, that's all going to be covered. So we don't have to worry too much about doing all of our maths here. So just going to score that off. And then same for our secondary line. So now we just want to just triple check our measurement here. So I've gone a bit off kilter there, I need just a little bit more. Oh yes, that line sort of misfolded a bit there. That's okay. Quite a stiff cardboard, but it will actually get even stiffer and thicker as we add the weaving, which will give it quite a lot of strength, I think. Let's just check that a bit more before we use our scorer. 4.5. 4.5. 4.5. Love it. Love it. Okay. So that'll just help us out. Just going to mark this bottom, top. Very technical. Okay, so next what we're going to do is we're just going to put this fold down and work outwards. So here we worked inwards, working outwards. All right. Oh goodness, I hope this works. If not, I'll have to grab another file folder. Here we go, the moment of truth. So that's the bottom, that's the top. So hopefully you should have a nice little squared off folder. Oh yeah, I love it. So what that's going to do is just give us a nice clean box. Now certainly it was kind of cute where the edges were curved around, but the fasteners that I'm using are not going to be actual fasteners. They're kind of going to be like faux fasteners. So I feel that by scoring this line, it's going to sit flush like this. It's not going to spring back. Whereas if we just kept the cardboard rounded off, it will spring back like this. Now, if you have actual fasteners, if you were using maybe some Velcro dots or something that you were going to physically attach it with, then that would be just fine. Like, you know, because you would have something to hold it like tight. I measured out everything and I wanted to give you an idea of how I got to where I got to. So we're going to work in this top flap. Now, you can, of course, cut your project down to make the measurements more rounded off, if that makes sense. So I'm coming in here on this top flap at just under 9.5 centimeters. Now, obviously, with my 1.5 centimeter weave strings, they're not going to quite fit perfectly even while still giving me a border. I need to have a border so that they've got something to keep everything tight in and everything in place, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to work out kind of roughly how many strings I can fit in here, while also working out exactly how much border I'm going to leave around the edge. So the way to do that is we're going to go, well, so what we've actually got here is like 9.4. So divide that by 9.4 divided by 1.5 centimeters is 6.2, a horrific number. We're not doing that. So what I need to do is work out what the next rounded up number kind of can be. So I think if I knock off, let's just pretend this is 9. So we're going to go 9 divided by 1.5. That's going to give us 6 even strings. Now, the thing about that is that it then doesn't, then that's bringing us all the way to the edge. Now, I'm going to try and have 3 full strings going this way. And so I would like to have a bit of stability between this panel and this panel when we cut. So if we knock off 1/2 centimetre here, or roughly 1/2 centimetre, that's going to make it 9 centimetres, but I think I want a little bit more than that. So if we make this, how much will that be? It's probably going to be just a little bit of guess and check with your own dimensions of whatever project. Obviously, I'm custom building this to suit my pages and the depth of how many ever pages. If you're following along and doing something similar, making a fisherman's basket, you might have only done, you know, a few pages, which would be beautiful. So you might not need certainly as much rooms. You might not need something quite as big as this. So now we've got 8 divided by 1.5, 5.3. So if we knock off another, so why don't we go like halfway. So why don't we go, so if we go like here and like here, I'm just kind of guesstimating here, but now we can mark off 1.5 centimetre intervals. Can we fit? Oof, just. All right, so what I might do then is, so that's actually where we should finish off, but maybe we bring it a bit this way. So you see what I mean? Just guess and check. It's going to be totally custom to whatever project, but if you, whatever the size of your project, but if you if you stay the course with your weave strings and keep everything all just even Steven, then you should be right. Just keep that. I'm just in my mind keeping that 1.5 centimetre dimension in my mind. And so now we will have a little bit of a flap, a little bit of a border around the flap. So next, what we have to do is I'm going to just quickly rule out the this exact thing. So I'm going to rule out the border all the way around, because even though what I'm actually doing right now is the warp string, the strings part, like what I'm actually measuring, I need to know where this border is going to go, because when we cut, we're actually cutting this way, and I don't want to actually slice through my border. So all of that has to sort of be, like drawn out. And that's why it's great to just use the inside cover to... Now we're only doing the horizontal lines at this stage. Right, okay. So we've got all of our our horizontal mapping done. Now we're going to do the exact same thing, but going vertically now. And by vertically, I mean vertically. So we've got a measurement here of, what did we have? 24. So 24, and same measurement, same maths. Oh, even Steven. So, however though, I don't necessarily want a 1.5 centimetre border. That's a bit too thick. So that's coming in, just so you can see, that's coming in here. That's a bit too thick. So maybe we will, and the thing about that is, I'll just say, when we do our weaving, in order to get a square weave, right, your cuts going this way have to be the same dimensions as your cuts going that way. So what I can do is I should be able to fit them if I split 1.5 centimeters in half. So that's brought me in at 0.75. I'm sorry, this is a lot of nonsensy maths. But it's just so that I can achieve this square situation. So looking at around about there. Around about there. Okay, so that, if that's all things being equal, 1.5 centimeters cut in half, 0.75. So that should give me, if I mark out my 1.5 centimeter distance, and I hope you can see actually if I'm doing this straight, because it's a bit far away from my eye at this point. Because this is where we're actually cutting. So we need to make sure that that's correct or close enough. Oh, 21. And then that should come in at 1.5. How did we go? Okay, great. Okay, so what we need to do now is measure out a 0.75 or as close to thereabouts border running the entire, or not the entire perimeter, sorry, just these two edges. So we have now a 0.75 centimeter border going all the way around. We altered the top and the bottom just to make sure that they were all even. We've got our score lines ready to go and our fold lines. And so now we have, I'm holding it upside down. So this is the top flap. We've got our top spine. We've got our back panel. We've got our bottom spine and our bottom flap. Now, the next step is we need to mark out, and I know this is a lot of back end work in getting all of this mapped out, but it will just make the rest of the process so much quicker, and you'll end up with a lot more nicer finish if you just do a little bit of measuring. So what we need to do now is from the top to the bottom, or however you see fit, we're going to mark out our score lines, our cut lines, I should say. So this should be fairly simple. However, we're not cutting all the way from the top to the bottom. We are cutting our vertical lines only from the top to the bottom of each panel, right? So we've got one panel at the top. So the first thing I'm going to do is mark out my score lines, my cut lines from the top to the bottom of the top panel only. Top panel only. This is very important because, it's not the end of the world, but if we cut through all of this maths that we've just done, we're sort of losing what would be considered a spine, or a stabilizing panel, a stabilizing, what do we call this? Like a stabilizing, if you're talking in weaving terms, it's a frame. We're creating a frame. So you're going to cut through your frame if we just go from top to bottom. So we don't want to do that. Okay, so we're going to line this up. Now you could just go in with your knife and cut straight away. If you're feeling, if you're feeling bold. I'm really that bold. I prefer to see it all laid out first, just to make sure, because then we'll be able to essentially line up these lines with our, and to be honest guys, I probably should be using a more sharp pencil. I managed to pick out the bluntest one in the box, just to get those lines really crisp. But we're in for a penny in for a pound at this stage, aren't we? Now, there are probably a million ways to achieve this. But what we're essentially doing is creating a set of warp strings onto which we can weave our basket. So I'm going to go through and do that exact process in each of these remaining 4 panels. I'll do that off camera just to save you a bit of time and a bit of my gas bagging, and I'll be back and we can get ready to cut. All right, lovelies. Now you can see that I have drawn out all of the guide marks, the cut guide marks. And I have left a noticeable border around each little panel. Yes? Okay, so now we can cut. What I thought I would do is, because it's going to take me a little bit of time to cut all of these, so we're going to cut one panel together, and then we're going to cut our weaving strings using our secondary file folder and measure all that together, and then I will again go away and just quickly do that off camera. But we're going to do this together. Now, you could use any knife. Any knife will do. I'm going to use my actual one out of my toolbox, which is just a little bit more chunky. So it's nothing fancy. Got a bit of glue on there, love it. You know, and I think that's going to be just a little bit more successful than, say, the likes of this. Only because the cardboard it's not super thick, but it is thicker than regular paper, copy paper. If you were using something thinner, and certainly for this project, you could use scrapbook paper or just a heavier paper stock, then by all means go ahead and do that and use a, you know, something a bit more petite. So we're going to start, before I rule this off, the idea is we're going to start here and finish here with our cuts, right? Like within this border. And actually, if that does confuse you, you could even, you know, rub these guidelines out here and just have the lines that you actually have to cut. I think I'll be okay. So I'm just going to, hold it straight, girl. So I'm just going to cut. That one's a little bit wobbly, but that's okay. That's all right. We're getting the groove here. Getting the groove. And then finish off on the end there. Okay. Now, if you do turn this over and notice that some of your score lines are a bit skewiff, i.e. here, you just go back in and tidy those up. And also likewise with the length. So I can see there I've kind of come in a bit short on that one. So you can just tidy that up. Okay, now we're going to cut our weave strings, and we should be able to get almost everything we need out of one piece here. So basically the way to do that is to just get everything lined up here all good and square as possible. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect, my lovelies. Just go with the flow. Try not to panic if it's not super 100% straight. We will survive. Promise. Okay, So we're going to just measure this off. And the good thing about these weave strings is that you can trim them, right? You trim them at the end if they're not perfect. And our edges are going to be covered. So again, if there's a wobbly edge, if things aren't perfect, that doesn't matter. Okay, so we're going to use the width of our project to determine the width of our weave strings. And then, oh, just noticed this file folder has little score lines here from where you put the little clippy in, but that's fine. That's just going to add more texture. So now we have to go along, and this one's reasonably simple with the measuring. Sure, right. Yeah, I've heard you say that before. Okay, so we're going to come in at 1.5, 1.5, 1.5, 1.5. I've just realised I've done this on the front side. I should have done this on the back side, but that's all right. We'll just go through with a rubber at the end, an eraser, and just tidy up all of these lines. That was a bit of a boo-boo, wasn't it? Oh, and by the way, guys, my neighbour is doing his roof, and so you may hear the occasional crash. Don't be alarmed. It's not coming from my home, it's coming from my neighbour's home. Okay, so now you can do this with your knife or scissors. But there's no right way. Okay, so I'm going to cut those out, and I'm also going to, sorry, there's loud scissors. I'm going to cut these out, and I'm also going to go through and just do these other 4 panels with my knife to get our cover all ready to go, and then we can weave. Okay, we're back. Now, a couple of things happened while I was away. The first thing is my neighbour has now started gurneying his roof, so it might be a little noisy. I hope you can't hear it. If you can, I apologise. The second thing that happened was I made a fun discovery that a couple of these little strippies had nothing on the back, like no printing, and they are just a slightly different colour in this sort of crafty, still in the crafty buff kind of colour, but different again. So I've got, what, half a dozen here, something like that. And I think I'm going to intermittently and sporadically weave those in, and it'll sort of, I think, give it a little bit more of a even more natural baskety weave look. Now, the third thing that happened, and you're going to think I'm a little bit nuts, but there's method to my madness. So whilst I was midway cutting, you can see I got to here. And I did make one mistake, but that's all right. I had a little change of heart and I recut and remade the whole thing. The reason being that when I was doing all of my planning earlier, it was so that when we weave this in, I would get a square. So all of that maths was based on the weave being a square-sized weave, or shaped weave, I should say. So that you can see here, if I do this little quick demo, that will give us, that these measurements will give us a square checkerboardy look, right? So what I thought while I was weaving, cutting this, and I got to this point, was, do I want that? Do I want it to look like a checkerboard? I really want this to look like a basket. And most baskets have a longer weave, and it's more of a rectangle shape in the weave, right? Rather than a square. All the weaving I've done in the past has been this square shape, and I've always wanted to try a rectangle. And so if we take the exact same width strips, so our strips don't change, but if we take our strips and weave them into a wider warp string, we're going to get more of a rectangle shape. So hang on, I'll do this again. I'll keep this in here, just so you can see the difference and see the method in my absolute madness. And this is not going to waste, by the way. I will definitely use this, finish cutting all of this and use it for a different project, because that's what we do in our craft, right? We save everything so that nothing goes to waste. Okay, so you can see what I mean. So yes, it makes it a little bit chunkier, right? But I think, and certainly if you wanted it to look even more like a basket, oh gosh, do I want that? I mean, I did have one little strippy that was left over that was the wrong size. That's even thinner. What if I cut it down half size? I mean, you know, this is what I like to call the evolution of our craft, right? So, you know, I always say that, like, paper, our paper craft, all this beautiful paper and supplies we use for our crafts, they were all alive once. You know, they grow on trees. They were all alive at one point. And so they have this beautiful energy about them. And when you craft, you really, I think that's part of the evolution of the craft, right? Oh, maybe I want this. I really want it to look like a basket. And so, and the amount of strings that we've cut doesn't change, because the length of our vertical strip, our vertical cover doesn't change. So everything I've got here will still be more than sufficient enough to actually complete the project. Obviously, the smaller these are, the longer it will take to physically weave it. And that is sort of at your discretion, like if you want to, how long you want it to take. That's the question. But oh, what would look better? I'm really leaning towards this thinner one. All right, I think I will do that, which is going to require more work, but that's okay. I won't bore you with that. I will do it myself off camera quietly. But the maths, okay? So just so that we're all on the same page, the maths did not change. So I drew it up exactly the same as the other one, the original. So everything that I did the exact same. And I used the exact same type of folder, everything the same. The only thing that was different was when I measured these, they are now 3 centimeters wide instead of 1.5. So just the exact same width. The half of the width exactly. And then because this was exactly 24 centimeters, that divisible by 3 is even. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 strippies to cut. But I did start my cut line not from this guideline here. I started it from the edge. Now that I didn't cut this outside line. And to be honest, I probably didn't need to do it on this one either. But what that's going to do too is that it's going to give me just a little bit more room here to hold everything in place and then put the binding on. So these two outside rows will be a little bit shorter visibly when we look at it, but I think that's all right. I was happy to sacrifice that for ease of measuring everything out. So yeah, so okay, I'm going to cut my new I'm going to cut these strippies down even thinner, so I'll cut them in half, and then we'll start our weaving. Sorry about that weird little intermission there, but you know what? It's all part of the process, and because I'm obviously filming this live this time, you're getting the full evolution of the of the project live in real time. All right, I'll be right back. It's time to weave. I got the strips cut down to be half the size. So I just did this with scissors. I'm really hoping that they line up okay. But, you know, part of the charm, like I want this to look like an old basket anyway. So part of the charm of this project is the imperfection. So we're really leaning into that. So here we go. So we'll start, you can start anywhere. And because this is cardboard, hopefully it's not going to be too tricky to weave, but we're just going over and under like so. Oh, I already love the dimension of, or should I say the contrast in the dimension of the really thin strips. So then we're going to take our second one, and just above it we're going to do the opposite. So where we went over here, we're going under here. It's a little bit fiddly, but it's more fiddly with paper. Like this is lovely and stiff. And then we're going to just keep doing that basically, and don't worry about whether your ends are all tucked in, because we can slide everything and get it all neat and tidy. But one thing I will say, and I said this in my last weaving tutorial, is that just keep pushing it down if you can. So just keep pushing it down, because it's a little bit easier to do that as you go, rather than leaving that till the end where you're trying to squeeze in up the end there. All right, so I'm going to just get a little bit of this glue here. And like gravity will probably cause these to lift a little bit. But if you can sort of just coerce them down, give them a moment. Oh, and then this glue should be good enough to hold everything. And so you can see what I mean about, you know, like deciding to keep from cutting this extra edge. Like now we have almost an inch, or maybe even more than an inch of tail here, rather than just over 1/2 centimeter, which of course is going to make this a lot more secure and sit a lot more flat and lovely on the edge. So that's basically, I'm going to repeat this gluing process. I've managed to get glue everywhere, but I'll be a bit tidier. And I'll glue down the front flaps on both sides, and then I'm going to weave the entire rest of this in this exact same fashion. So that's going to take me a little while, so I'll quickly do that off camera, and I will check back with you in a moment, and we will begin working on the next part, which is going to be the straps to like the little fasteners for the fisherman's basket. The weaving is done, and also, so this is the inside. I gave her a little glow up off camera as well. I took it into the kitchen and did a little bit of coffee dyeing just to warm it up, make it feel a bit more natural, like it's not made of cardboard. So if you can see, that's the before colors, that's the after, quite a difference. And then I just used a heat gun to dry it off quickly, and then I did coat it in a bit of this Rust-Oleum clear coating, and so that's kind of given it a nice feel. It feels amazing, and it's actually very satisfying. This did take a long time to weave, but it's, you know, I'm always, or should I say, I'm never you know, it's never not worth the time, if that makes sense. So we're just going to reinforce some of those little joins. It's kind of cracking a little bit, but it's okay. That's all part of it. Let me know actually in the comments if you would like a little coffee dyeing tutorial. I never know if that's something that people are interested in, if I include it in the videos. I do it almost for every project. I did it for all these pages, and of course, like, each material sort of soaks up the coffee differently. So that's what we're working with. Oh my gosh. So it actually is the perfect fit. That's so satisfying. And so she's going to open this way, and then the pages will open this way. Now, you could actually make the cover like bigger if you wanted to. I kind of like the idea of it just being snug and the pages being snug in their cover. So the next step, obviously I want to line this, and we're going to add, in part 3, we're going to add lots of embellishments and things to the inside cover. However, I want to do all of the I want to make the little fasteners and the handle and do those things and attach them before we then line the cover and finish off the edges, right? So that everything is kind of covered up and hidden as we go, right? So that things don't poke through and you don't need to worry about things showing that you don't want them to show. So okay, so what are we doing for the straps? Now, what I want is for this to sort of have like a bit of a, you know, the straps come down and maybe they sort of tuck into a little something here on the bottom. We'll see if it works. Again, like I'm not making this up as I go. I've kind of got a rough plan, but I haven't really measured anything. So we'll just triple check. Yes, that's the top. So this is the top part, and I think the way I'm going to do this is by using some of our offcut scraps. So let's just see. Sorry, I'm fluffing about a bit here. Okay, so that length is obviously way too long. And then, okay, so I'm going to use this little ruler here just as a kind of like a template. And I think I'm going to just trim it down. And I'm thinking that if we can put this kind of where we can see the middle point, the midpoint of this, just use this little ruler here as a little corner bit. Does that work? Let's see. You really only need to do this once, and then you can just replicate it on the other one. How's that? Pretty close. I'm going to cover these, I think. I wanted to either paint them or just sort of make them look a little bit fancy. So what I've decided is to, I had two options here, but now given the color of this, we're going to go with the darker brown fabric. We're going to just use some fabric here. And this is a very lightweight cotton fabric. And I think I got this whole big piece for, I don't know, the grand prize of probably about 50 cents or something. It's very affordable. So I think we will just make life really easy for ourselves here. And we'll use this fabric to just trim out our pieces. And that's going to add like some more texture. I wonder if I should have got the clasps done. No, all right, hang on. We'll just do one thing at a time here. So we'll get this on, and I'm just using, this is my old trusty one, and then I grabbed a second one just in case. This tape is so sticky and so good. I even use it to hang little curtain rod in my Kallax IKEA unit to hide our media stuff. So this is beaut for, you know, being confident that nothing is going to come apart when you use it. So what we're going to do here is we are just going to take back some tape here. There's going to be a bit of offcut, but I don't think I can, no, I can't fit two on there. So we'll just have to be a little on the wasteful side for the minute. Okay, so I don't want this process to seem intimidating. It's really not, especially if you've got tape that's as good as this. So we're just going to trim that off. So sticky. And starting from the top, smoothing as you go. Smoothing as you go. But I'm just going to use these scissors that I know will cut through the tape, and then you can just use a bit of oil, the orange citrus, orange power or something is it called? Cleaner to clean your scissors after they've got something sticky on them. And so we're just going to cut around our shape. And then, because we're junk journalers, just gonna put my scrappies on here, because who knows, maybe we can salvage those or something. And again, just be patient. Stay close to the edge, and ideally it won't fray. Well, I don't think this particular fabric will fray because it's just cotton. Well, I think so. Obviously, I got it secondhand, so I don't know if it has it didn't have any, like, you know, name on it or anything, but okay, so there's the first one. Just see where I've nicked a bit there. And look at that. So fabulous. I think it will work. I think it will work. Oh, and look, I sharpened my pencil as well. Oh, yes. Things are looking up, guys. We can always trim these down, you know, if they are indeed too big when we put them on. Although 4 centimeters will be deep enough, but I don't think it will be wide enough. So we might just, oh, I shouldn't have done that. We might just fold them in half. You don't have to worry about these being perfect either. No, just freehand them if you feel like it. Okay, now corner rounder, but again, don't worry about that if you don't have one. You might want to make these fasteners a circle would be beautiful. But I think with the rectangular shape of our basket, I think that that's... Now I've got these 2 little offcuts. Are they going to fit? I think... great. I think that a rectangle for my fasteners is the best way. I'm loving that I was able to leave the film on the outside of the tape. Fabulous. Get that on. It's so sticky, guys. It's the stickiest of sticky tapes that there is. All right, so we can cut them out, same as the straps. And with this method, your scissors will get a little bit of that sticky residue on them. So just bear that in mind, you know, if that's something that bothers you. I don't mind cleaning my scissors. I clean them all the time. So that doesn't really bother me. But that might be a game changer for you, sticky scissors. So these strappies were too short. I realized as I went to put them on, I realized that I'd made them far too short. So that's okay. I've made new ones up until this point. So just the exact same process that we just took. And you know what? This is how you become a better artist. Like learning, I don't want to say making mistakes, but just trying new things and, you know, getting to a certain point and realizing you need to do something again, or, you know, just learning. Learning is how you, and, you know, practice. So I don't ever get fussy about having to do things more than once. Okay, so and I wanted to be transparent about that because, you know, obviously if you came back and they were the wrong length, that's silly. Okay, so What we're going to do though is I'm going to put these down first. Yes, and then that will help us to figure out the position and thus the length of these. So what we need here is we need two little slits for it to go through. So maybe it doesn't have to be a huge big thing. Maybe something like here and then here. And then we just need to get the width of our strap. Okay, so I'm hoping that this will cut. I'm hoping this will cut all the way through without ripping the material, but we'll see. We will see. Otherwise, we can just do it again. Find a different way forward. Did it go through? Almost. I might get my other little knife here. Okay, great. So the idea is then that this can tuck in there. Amazing. So what we would need to glue is around this. So I'm just going to use this now as a template for the other one. So I'll do the other one quickly. Okay, I'm just trying to decide how to attach these. So we might just to give ourselves something to lean on and to make sure that everything is how it's supposed to be. To put our book in. Okay, great. So, and then we set these are going to go here. So we don't want there to be too much of the little diamond down at the bottom there. I think that's just about perfect, actually. And then I'm thinking maybe some of the tape to tape this down rather than the glue. What do we think? Could be risky. But I mean, I'm nothing if not a thrill seeker. Oh, let's have a go. Let's have a go. I have in the past used some really great like glue tapes. But I tell you, the one that I've just recently purchased was so bad. Like, it's just terrible. It's barely sticky. So I think I'm going to have to, I don't know, I'll use it for something like a project that doesn't require really super high levels of stickiness. But my goodness. Disaster. Absolute disaster was what I was thinking when I started using it. It wasn't really cheap either. It wasn't a cheap one, but it's by far the worst I've ever used. So feel free to comment down below if you can recommend any good glue tape brands so we can share information. And we'll just pop that down. And I think that over time, these will sort of open out a little bit. I'm finding it hard to get my, there we go. Okay. Now, so now we can sort of figure out the length, and to be honest, this was probably the way that I should have done it earlier, but here we are. So we'll just do one. My scissors are getting a little bit on the sticky side at this point. I probably need a bit of a clean in a moment. I might just switch up my scissors. Lovely. And we've established that the corner rounder can handle the fabric, which is great news. Okay, so where's the other one? Here. So we're just going to copy paste. Nice. All right, so we'll just use this little one here as a guide. Because we still need to cover the backing, so we'll do that. But now we have the right size, so the rest should be all right. I'm just going to follow the exact same procedure that I did on these, and I'll be right back. Okie doke, hardware. So I've got my little stash of brads, and I've pulled out some of these larger gold ones, and I'm just going to, this is just a fine grit sanding block. As you can see, it's quite worn in, and I'm just going to just shave off some of that really intense gold, so you can see. And if I just grab it, so it's not quite silver, but it's just not that really intense artificial gold. I mean, seeing as the cover, even though yes, there's a lot going on in terms of pattern, I actually don't think this is, like, it's certainly not the most extra cover I've made myself. So I think a little bit of extra detail in these little kind of additions will be fine. And I might just score this going that way. Oh my goodness. I love it already. So you can see why we're doing all of this before we get the lining on the inside. Because if possible, It's not essential, but if possible, we want this to be covered, right? We want it to look beautiful on the outside, but also on the inside. Okay, oh, I love it. All right, next is we're going to do almost the same process with the handle. So we're going to make a strap like this and leave the feet. We're going to do some scoring and leave some feet to attach it. So grab some more scrap. And I think I can use one of our little mistake ones as a guide. I think I like this as the width. So I've cut out a strip that's the same width as this, and I'm going to just figure out, I think it might be nice if it's not all just perfectly centered. So I might make it about as wide as that, but we need to add some folding here. So I'm gonna fold this off. And then we might fold it maybe a centimetre in height, maybe 1.5 centimetres in height, because we want it to have a little bit of height but not too much. So straighten it up. Okay, so you can see it's just a letter Z there, and that's just going to let the handle sort of sit up a bit. Okay, and then so once we've got that letter Z, we can take our thing here. Now unfortunately the scrap piece that I've used has a fold here, but that's all right. Work with what we've got. It's not going to fall to pieces, so that's all right, because it'll have the fabric on it, you see. So we're going to fold this back in on itself. And then like so. So we'll just measure off 3 and then cut, and then we can just, you know, sort of put it where it needs to go in the center. Do that, and then we've got our little magic tool. Now obviously you don't need a corner rounder. Do not. You can either leave it straight, freehand with some scissors, or trace around the end of a card or something that's got a curved edge. That'll just give us a little bit of room as well for the brads. So I'm going to cover this now in fabric, and I'm going to the exact same way using the tape. So I'm going to cover this entire top part, and I'm only going to cover this bottom up into our little flappy bits. Okay, I'll be right back. All right, our handle is ready to go, and I thought it might be a good idea to just mark the brad, at least cut through some of it before we attach it. You know, we're learning. So this is going to go here, but I did want to add just one little extra detail because why not? Now, I was at the op shop and I found these, and honestly, they just screamed fisherman's basket to me. Like, as soon as I saw them, I was like, oh my gosh, they need to go in the fisherman's basket project. So I'm not sure if they're like leather or vinyl, or if they're handmade, or I'm not sure. But I would love to include them, and I'm going to include them in a few different ways just to help sort of tie everything together. But I'm hoping that the first way is I would love to wrap this handle. I would love to wrap this handle in some of this twine. So I'm not sure how I'm going to attach this, but let's just give it a go. Maybe we can just tie it in on itself, you know. So bear with me while I get this going. But I just thought it would add just some really cute like charm to the handle, you know. So this might actually take me a while, but I'm going to sit and I think I'm going to use this because there's like a thicker one and a thinner one in the same tone, because I need this. I think I'm going to use this thicker one as our binding thread. So it's just going to be a matter of patiently, hopefully there's enough here, we'll see, patiently just wrapping this in on itself. Alright, so we'll just tie it off somehow. It's very stiff. I wonder if I don't know if it's real leather or vinyl, but it's very stiff, so that's good. That's fine with me. So I'll just try and do a cheeky little knot here. Okay, I kind of like this little knot here. It feels natural. Okay, cool. So I'm going to stick this on the same way that I did these. I'll pop the brads in, and then we can start working on the lining and the trim. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, everyone. I've just gone to check my footage and I realized that I did this whole lining and it wasn't recording. Okay, so just to quickly recap, what I did was picked out some scrapbook paper. So this was it. And basically just measured a little bit past where I need the lining to actually sit, just to preserve paper basically. And measured out, just very roughly, measured out the size, glued it on with some PVA glue and my brush, and that's just going to keep this all tucked in. And I'm now just letting it all set with the pages just inside it. And the next step is going to be, I'm going to use my tape to make some binding that will finish off the edges of our basket. We're going to need 2 rows of around about 25 centimeters, and that will be for these two edges, so this edge here and this edge here. What did we say? 35, 45, very good. Yes. And oops, and are we even crafting if we're also not simultaneously playing Twister? Alright, I'm going to use... Oh, I can't decide which scissors. My big scissors are kaput. They've got so much glue on them at this point that I need to clean them. So I'm just going to gently and purposely cut this. And I'm just going to use now that same guideline for all of these 4 pieces as I cut them. Yeah, okay, just follow the line with the fabric scissors. I don't want to get glue on the fabric scissors if possible. If at all possible. So there's our trim. Just tidy it up. Okay, so I'm going to repeat that process now 3 more times with the rest of these pieces. All right, so now we can add this tape to our journal. So the way we're going to do that is it's going to wrap, and so I want around the edge. So I want to sort of fold it and score it in half so that we might be able to know where the middle is. Where's my bone folder? There it is. So that we might be able to just easily know where the center fold is. And that seems to be working pretty well. So now it should be just a matter of getting this on. So I think what I can do, hopefully, fingers crossed, we're going to start from one end, and this will be a bit fiddly. I do believe it will be fussy, but let's just see how we go. See how we go. And we've given ourselves plenty of room, so we'll just take it right to the, not quite right to the edge, as in the end, sorry. So we'll put that down in the crease, and we're just going to sort of line up the ditch if you're a sewer. Sort of get the edge lining up with the ditch. And if you're not a sewer, the ditch is that little groove that we've made. Okay, and then a little bit more. Just make sure that there's enough there to compensate for the hinges. So again, just lining that up with the ditch. So I'm going to start from the middle here, working outwards. Gently. Try and avoid creases. And fraying if possible too. This kind of reminds me a little bit of, like, you know, when you had to cover your school books. I'm showing my age, but you had to cover your school books in contact paper. It reminds me a bit of that. Okay, very good. So now we can just trim the end. And after this project, I'm going to have a nice little scissor cleaning session to clean all of my scissors, because now they're all covered in glue tape. I'll just kind of ease some of those marks out. But I'm not too concerned, because I don't need it or want it to be absolutely perfect. I want it to look natural, you know? If I cut here, okay, so hang on, let me move this up so I can show you. All right, here's how we're going to try and get the angled cut. I really hope it works. So I'm going to cut to the end, and then I'm going to cut from here to the corner, right? So we're going to cut to the edge, and then we're going to cut from here. We're going to corner angle down. Okay, it worked. Fantastic. Now we'll do the same on the outside. We've already done our straight cut. So then we're going to angle inwards. And that's just given us a nice little corner bit. Love it. All right, so the last thing we're going to do in this video, so for part 2, is we're going to actually mount our pages into the book. Now, the way that we're going to do that is I don't want to glue these all together and put some twine or something like that, because that's going to change the height of and the depth of the pages. I want them to sit up nice and proud and in a kind of a box shape. So that's going to keep everything nice and tidy. Now, the way that we're going to do that is with yet another piece of this tape fabric situation. So I've grabbed another file folder. It's just the same type of one that we've been using. And I need to cut just a little edge bit, right? So we need it to be as deep as whatever your page turning width is. So for me, let's grab my wee ruler here. For me, that is around about 2 centimeters. It's around about 2 centimeters. So I'm going to have that as my little edge, and then it is going to fold down, and then we're going to tuck it underneath the bottom page. So how are we going to do this? Well, we're going to figure it out, right? So we need to cut a piece that has a 2 centimeter edge. It also needs to be the width of our page, our folder here. So probably do this flat, make it a bit easier. So from there to there, so we just get our pencil, and you can see that I'm not able to give you like proper measurements for these things, because this is obviously unique to my project specifically. So just bear that in mind. You might be making one that's this big, so you just need to work out the height of your project, or your page, I should say. And so we can just actually pop our page in here and just make sure that that's all things being equal. And it doesn't really matter which side of the folder we work on, because it's going to be covered anyway. I think I've been a bit over excited there with that. I think that's probably a bit big. I think maybe this is a bit more reasonable. Yeah, Yes, much better. All right, so we're going to just measure this. So exactly 15.5. Love that. Love that. Okay, so in terms of width, we need a fold here to cover, this is where our holes are going to be. We also need to replicate this depth here because that's our height. Now from memory, did we end up being 4.5? Yes, 4.5. So now we need to measure another 4.5 onto this. So again, if whatever your depth is, so that's going to be another fold line. Now, in addition to that, I want it to sit sort of from here. Actually, no, sorry. So this is going to have to come almost to the edge on this side. And then am happy for it to finish sort of here. No. That's where the fold is going to go. So we probably want it to be hidden. So I might actually just take it to here. I might actually just take it to where the edge of the lining is. Yes. So that distance is, so we're going to take it from here just to the edge of the lining. So that's going to be around about 22.5. So it's just going to be yet another bit of trial and error. And then just checking that you've got the right distance. So we're going to make it 15. We're going to make it 15. I'm going to make it 15. Just to make sure, and then if this is too long, we can trim it down. So lovely. All right, I'm going to try and cut this with my knife because my scissors have left the chat. Because they're covered in glue. Now we just need to do some scoring here. And here. Okay. And hopefully your material doesn't crack at this point. Mine is okay. Okay, so this is where I'm going with this. So we can get a visual. Let's get a visual. So we're going to cover just to there. Then our pages are going to tuck in here. Yep. Like so. And that should, in theory, keep everything turnable, but tight, and not too tight. Not too tight that it's putting pressure on this spine and causing this to become out of shape. So in theory, that's what we're going for. Now, we don't need to cover the whole thing in fabric. No. We just need to do, I think I'm just going to do this end bit, front and back, because you might just catch a glimpse of it out the corner of your eye as you're flicking through the pages. Where's my tape? As you're flicking through the pages. So now, that's what we needed, was just a little edge. And now we can come back in here and score off, where's my scorer? Score off our fold. And I am going to attempt, this is being really, really optimistic. It's quite thick at this point. Plus it's got 2 bits of fabric there, so I'm using my scissors for that. That's very naughty. I don't know how I managed that, but oh well. Because that will be visible, but that's okay. That's all right. Oh, actually, I guess I could. No, I can't now. I was going to say maybe I can turn it the other way. No, girl, you're done with that. That's done. That's okay. I do actually want to do a little bit of, in the decorating phase of this cover, I do actually want to do some maybe potentially some dry brushing on this brown area, so that little boo-boo there might not end up being as big of a problem at all. Hopefully nice and straight as well. And aligned. And to finish off and get these pages in, I'm going to, I hadn't actually decided what to do with all our little beautiful blue tails, but as I lay them in the book, I am going to chop them, and I'm hoping I can actually use them in the decorating phase. So in this first page, I'm going to, which is actually the last page. My poor scissors. It's been a scissor massacre today with all that glue tape. All right, so I'm going to keep my little tails here because I really feel like they will be useful in the decorating phase. And now we're going to do the same thing with but I'm not putting any glue on the spine here. So, and this of course is just the last page, which I purposely left blank. I wanted to make sure that there was a page that was going to sit perfectly flat in the back, and that was so that we could achieve this folder opening basket sort of situation. We are going to get that down. And I'm just going to stand up here to make sure that I'm lining that up. Should kind of get only one shot at that. So we want to cover this edge. So ooh, gently. Now you won't really see this, but you might need this one. Just gently. Just gently. And I'm hoping I'm not, there might be a little bit of this brown fabric trim under there. Could I use that? And if I had actually a fancy if I had like a fancy so if I had like a fancy brad, no, a fancy you know, where you put those little round things, round metal things, I would definitely add some of those. I have one on my list for Santa. So you could definitely add some more hardware here. But I think what I'm going to do is I think that I'm not going to attach it. I think I'm going to let it just sit up so that it looks kind of intentional, but like it's just there to sort of you know, support like it's just been added as like a little bit of extra support. These are all the fun little things, you know, like when you're crafting, like, oh, I'll add this, oh, I'll add that. Oh, that is a miracle that went through. And I kind of live for it, actually, like adding those little details. See, if you had one of those punch thingies, you could put hardware. And if I leave it floating, actually, in the future, I could do that myself if Santa is kind to me. So I'm going to, now we need to do the same thing here. So line up our top, because remember all of our tops, page tops, are the same. Oh, goodness. Right, well, that's my muscle workout for today. Okay, here we go. So now, in theory, we should be able to get our twine. So I've given myself more than enough, I hope. Yeah, that should be enough. And then come in with our little extra flourish that we added. And that's just gonna, again, make that look a little bit more intentional, tidy it up some. So you can see what I was saying about earlier about having the twines kind of match. So that's kind of where I was going with that. All right, I'm going to now, one by one, sit down and I'm going to remove all of the twine, all of the cotton, and I'm going to mount the pages into the book, and I will be right back. So we're up to adding in the last few pages. I actually didn't need to do them one at a time. I was able to bundle them up, which was a great relief. So just feed that through and then feed this through. Now obviously I left these leather tails quite long, but actually in part 3 I would like to add just like a cover page and, you know, just some other things. So I'm hoping that we will just keep this long for now. Like, right, you can always make things shorter, but you can't make them longer. So now we're just going to feed this through our little binding area. And just for now, we're going to tie it off, although I do have concerns when I snapped that piece earlier that maybe this is not strongest. like leather, but we'll see, we'll see. And so, okay, it's a little bit loose, but as I say, I've got more to add here, so I'm hoping that that will be just the perfect height once we're all done. And there's our pages all mounted in the book, and then these tails can sort of just hang, and then this will fasten closed. So I'll let this beautiful trim just sort of hang out the edge, and then hopefully I can get these to behave. I'm thinking I might need to cut, like just make a little cut up and down, but I'll do that on a day next time, just to make sure that my wits are about me when I do that, because I have been crafting now for quite a few hours. So let's just keep it simple for the moment. And there she is. What a beautiful marathon to have run to put that together. I'm absolutely chuffed. There's that little boo-boo I made with the glue, but that's okay. As I said, I do hope to maybe use a little bit of black to do some dry brushing on this, just to bring out a little bit more aging. But we'll see. We'll see, because I think it still looks a bit new, and I do want it to sort of have that really beautiful aged appearance. But there she is. I'll film her again in the daylight so you can see what she looks like. But in the meantime, I really hope you've enjoyed doing this project with me today, part 2 of our Fisherman's basket. This was obviously the cover, and there were many steps, so I'm not going to retrace all the steps in this outro, but I really hope you've enjoyed crafting with me today. I look forward to seeing you in part 3, which will be next week, and we will add some decorating, embellishments, some fishing themed bits and pieces, some other ephemera and other things that I really want to add into this Fisherman's basket. So I hope you have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.